People relate much more readily to stories about people like themselves than they do to grand narratives about kings and princes and prime ministers and politicians. This is what the radical change that social history brought with it in the 1940s and 50s when it first started to emerge. That people began to understand, historians began to understand, that rather than have the grand narrative which is hugely important because it tells you how power operates, which is something we all need to know about. Without that grand narrative of who was in power when, who could decide to go to war and when, who made decisions about the welfare of the citizens and so on, we wouldn't have an understanding of how our lives are run. But you can also come at it from the other end. You can come at it from the lower end of ordinary citizens living their lives and getting on with them. Many of them don't leave much of a record behind. But what we have in the museum here brings us back through those decades into eras that we haven't lived through, and in some cases that we have, and we can relate to through memory, direct living memory. Otherwise, we have to use our imagination. And what the little museum does is to try to prime the pump of the human imagination, to bring it back into empathy with lives lived long before we were here.